Oh, how's everything going this fine morning?
It's great. Thanks for having me today. I appreciate
Oh,
it.
no, I'm excited. How is everything going at the girls' union? How are you settling in?
It's good. I officially started on July 1st, and you would be amazed about the amount of wrestling things I was looking at on the 1st of July. You think the season really never ends, but it's been good. Aside from wrestling, I'm social media is one of my main roles, event management, event planning, event contracts, and then I'm a number two on volleyball and track and field. So there's a wide range of things that I've been learning over the past few months, which it's exciting. I was really excited to get here, and it's really truly a dream of mine to be working for the girls' union. So a lot of exciting things over the last few months.
Yeah, so do you feel like you're back in high school, but you're out for every single sport and everything? You're doing everything now?
Kind of. I really thought I knew a lot and I learned something new every day. And across all sports, I mean, last week I was at state tennis, team tennis in Pella, and I feel like I could go play tennis now, or I want to. There's a lot of
Yeah,
things that I didn't touch as a high schooler or even in college. And I'm like, wow, this is a whole different world. So it's really fun.
yeah. How's it been working with Erin? I know she's absolutely, perfectionist at what she does and she strives for everything. I've really enjoyed I've really enjoyed getting to know Erin and talking with her and being in meetings, but she's not an easy boss probably. And
She,
I'm not looking to rat you out
yeah,
or anything. So, but what's it like working with Erin?
it's been awesome. It's funny because before I started working here, we worked parallel for a lot of state tournaments outside of just wrestling. So it's been fun to see her in a different light. And I've always looked up to her as someone in the wrestling world. And I tell her every day I want to be viewed as her, in the wrestling world. People look up to her in a lot of different ways. So it's been fun to um, see her every day, if that makes sense. We saw a little snippet over at the sports commission of the girls union. So I'm in her office every other day asking something about wrestling. Does this make sense? Am I on the right track here? So I'm sure she'll get tired of me after wrestling season, but we kind of created this wrestling team this year with Louie too. So we're really excited about that. And we've already have meetings every couple weeks just to check in and make sure I'm totally understanding everything that I'm doing, if that makes sense.
Yeah, bringing Louis in is kind of I'm guessing that really raised the knowledge of wrestling just in the office because
Mhm.
just being around him, he knows so much. What's some
Yeah.
of the things you've gained from being around Louis so far?
I don't know if there's someone that doesn't have to look up like I ask him a question and he doesn't have to look it up. He just knows everything. And if he doesn't know it, he knows how to find the answer or know who to reach out to get the right answer. It's actually funny. We'll talk about it at the convention this weekend and it's on our website, but we changed up the state tournament schedule a little bit on that Friday morning. And it was Louis' idea. He was here first meeting we met. He's like, why don't we do this? And I'm like, genius. That first session on Friday, session three in the past, has sold out. So we're going to split it up and do class 1A in the morning, class 2A in the early afternoon to allow more fans in there, a little bit more room and space for the athletes, and then switch that every year like we have been. So we're excited about that change, but those are the little things that Louis has so much knowledge that just having the different perspective on the sport is great.
Yeah, no, that actually is a really good idea too. I love that because part of my last year, one of the favorite things I did was come back and watch 1A.
Mm-hmm.
And it was really fun just to sit in the stands and watch and
Right.
not have to worry about who's coming up soon and actually see wrestling. It was a good thing. Uh the environment in that office, I've been down for meetings before and
Mm-hmm.
it's got to be fun. Who is it crazy every day in there?
It
Something
is.
something's got to happen. So what's
Yeah.
the environment like?
It's a very happy, healthy, fun environment. Everyone is amazing in the office, and I look forward to coming to work every day. People my age call it the Sunday scaries when you have to think about what you have on Monday morning, and I'm excited to come to work. There's always something new stirring up for any sport. So it's a great place to work, and we all work really well together. There's been a lot of changes in the staff, including me, over the past few months, and state softball was a really good test for how we would mesh together, and it's been great. And we like spending weeks together at state tournaments and spending time together outside of the office too. So it's a good time.
I know with some of the guys in there, are there some practical jokes that happen every once in a while?
There's a lot of jokes. There's a lot of jokes. There's a lot of inside jokes that I'm learning every other day. So it's good.
Let's go back to your role at the Iowa City Area Sports Commission. You did all kinds of things,
Hmm.
including the state girls wrestling tournament.
Yeah.
Um, but maybe what were some of the events? What are some of the bigger events that you really enjoyed putting on that maybe really helped you get into this role?
Hmm. For me, I kind of started there I actually met Luke Eustace and Josh Schomburger through volunteering for USA Senior Nationals my senior year of college. And then from there, I internshipped with them and started full time when I graduated college in 2022. So as an intern, I had some fun events. The first year of Donnybrook for me, I was actually an intern. Um, Donnybrook is always a special one just because I was a part of that first year. And that first year, it was just Luke and I, and it was a smaller boys tournament, right? Girls wasn't sanctioned at that time. So it was really neat to be able to grow that, double it almost. And that second year, it was a disaster. Let's say that it's something we always joke about and we can joke about now, but we got in there on a Wednesday night and didn't go to bed until that Friday morning. We worked 42 hours straight overnight, laying mats ourselves, taping circles ourselves. Our boss, Josh, came in the next morning and he was like, "Did you guys go home?" And we said, "No. I mean, girls are showing up to weigh in here in a couple hours." So it was a gritty tournament for us too to put it on. And we had really big goals of to being a national tournament. So that one's always special to me. But then I mean, I didn't just do wrestling, and I think that's what helped teach me the event planning side of things and help really grow into something that I could use here at the Girls Union. Because yes, it helped me be able to run a wrestling tournament really well, thanks to everything that Luke taught me. But I also, I worked volleyball. We had swimming events, tennis, cyclocross, basketball, volleyball, everything. So I think being able to touch so many different sports over there and so many different organizations and groups, I worked with the Girls Union, I worked with the Boys Association at state duels, which are two very different tournaments, so that things like that really helped me when I went and wrote the RFP for state duels a few months ago. So there's a lot of different things that I appreciate about the sports commission and the people over there, and they really do great things. They're a nonprofit that's really just creating opportunities for student athletes, similar to what we do here. So,
Yeah, do all kinds of stuff. One of my favorite things that I went to down there, and I mentioned this earlier to you, the World Cup. I
hmm.
thought that was probably one of my first international experiences. I've been to freestyle tournaments, but I've never been to one
Hmm.
with all those different teams.
Yeah.
Was it Iran that
Yes.
had, and then there was
Yep.
protests going on, and the
Hmm.
Chinese were. Was it
Yeah.
China or Japan was there? I mean, it was just crazy. What went into
It was
something like
crazy.
that? Because there had to be
Um,
a
yeah,
lot.
that planning started like 2 years before that happened. So we put the bid in for that, and then that was immediate planning for things like grant programs through the state of Iowa. And then even communicating with them, it's such a long process to communicate overseas. And I mean, everybody paid in Swiss francs. Like there's crazy things that I learned about. I mean, we had translators for each program. It was also very unique being a girl in that space because some of these countries don't have girls that are in roles that tell them what to do. So that was very interesting for me to have to pull a wrestler, because they're on deck and saying like, "Hey, you're up next, and we're gonna load you to go out there and announce you." That was a very unique experience for me being a female. But that was a really fun experience. The production of that too, I think, is where a lot of our ideas came from. That green carpet, we actually purchased and laid that all by hand. I will never forget cutting carpet tape to stick that on. But that's a bid requirement of UWW. So that's something that goes into all of them. I think World Championships is blue, someone's purple. So it was a lot of time and energy that went into that one, but it was very special. It's something that you don't. I actually have my medal over there. I got my own gold medal from that. So it's a once in a lifetime event, definitely for spectators to come to, but for us to
Yeah.
put on to in the state of Iowa. So.
Yeah. It was a cool event. It was really neat. Um, and maybe I'll take this back because I did say it was my favorite event there. Actually, my favorite event there happened, and you were there the night we sanctioned girls wrestling in the state of Iowa.
Mhm.
Special night
Yeah.
for gosh, so many of us. So, what was it like for you?
Yeah, I think that was my first IWCOA tournament. I don't know if I had been a part of one before that because there was two at Extreme Arena. And so I think that was my first one. And that was something that Aaron had told us maybe like 2, 3 weeks before that, hey, the tournament's going to be sanctioned. What can we do to make it special? So Luke, Josh, and I sat around the table and discussed okay, how can we do this without telling people, without making it a big thing beforehand, before we wanted to. So we figured out the Parade of Champions was something we wanted to do. So we literally walked it out and stepped it out in our office where you had your signs and then you flipped it and it was the letter. And then we wanted young wrestlers to be a part of that. And I think that was such a cool experience. The t-shirt thing, Josh will still say, I don't know if you remember this, but I'm sure some people do. He had Dorothy, because I think she was announce that there were free t-shirts, the girls sanctioned t-shirts. Actually, it's the same one
Yep.
that's on my singlet back here. There's 800 free in the Green State Family Fieldhouse, and girls jumped over the dashers. People were running. He to this day he says that was his worst decision ever because he didn't realize how many high school girls would come over running to him. So yeah, that was a very special one, and you felt it. That's something that you walk away from, and you're like that was special, and it's something that you want to be a part of, and something we will always remember. So.
Yeah. Yeah, I can only imagine his horror and fear as all those girls came for a free t-shirt. I know
Hmm.
I would not get in the way of that.
Yeah.
I would not be stupid enough to say, "Hey, come get a free t-shirt," because I've been
Hmm.
around him. I've been around him long enough. I know that would be a disaster.
Yeah.
Uh, is there anything that happened maybe behind the scenes at some event that was like, oh crap, but you were able to
Mhm.
manage and work through that?
Um, Honestly, I feel like most wrestling tournaments, there's something, there's so many moving parts that not every other sport has. I think from there's been, issues with track wrestling going down, and you're like, oh my God, how do I figure that out? How do, we're pulling pens, we're pulling paper, we're going to go write it down, especially on that Saturday of Donnybrook. We always ran into that just because I think it was the same weekend as the big tournament in Vegas. Drawing a blank on the name of that, but I don't know. There's just a lot of different things that, tape gets ripped up at the state tournament, and you're like, oh my God, I got to go out there in the middle of tape it. I think timing is always an issue as a tournament manager that I think about, especially in girls wrestling, because that changes a lot. You could have a pin in 10 seconds or you could write it out for the 10 minutes. So that's something that we're kind of on edge about and waiting for something to happen. But I guess one thing in particular, going back to the World Cup, the security for that was unmatched and something I had never seen before, which makes you really appreciate the athletes that you have on the mat there. We had bomb squad there, and doing swipes every 2 hours with them was something unique, that I think that might be the only event that I've actually been a part of that for. So I guess that's not something crazy that happened, but just something unique that makes you appreciate the level of some of those events that we hosted.
I think I remember Aaron, and maybe you weren't 100% part of this last year for state finals. I believe she said that all of a sudden they came to her and said, "We're going to have fire," and we
Yeah, that was
no
chaos.
plan.
That was
Were you
chaos.
part of that?
Yes and no. So Josh had the idea to include fire because volleyball has it, right? Well, we now on the other side of things, I tell him, I'm like, well, you better have fire there every year. You can't have it one year and then not have it the next year. But yeah, that's something that Extreme Arena already had, but you of course have to have a license for it. You have to pay for it. It's quite expensive. And we had used it for Soldier Salute actually, but in smaller columns that fit wrestling better because they sit lower. It's what Iowa wrestling uses. So I thought that was coming in, and then I saw these come in. The doors were open, spectators were coming in, girls were warming up, and I'm like, oh my God. And then we put them out there, and of course, they cover the view to center mat, the championship mats. And I'm like, oh God. So, yes, that was a chaos situation that we had to figure out. But I feel like there's a little bit of that in everything. NCWWC, which was National Collegiate Women's Wrestling Championships that we hosted in March. There was a little bit of that too, chaos with our video boards. You know, we had them on all day and then couldn't get them to turn on until 5 seconds before we started. There's a lot of chaos in the production world, that's for sure.
Yeah. Yeah, I help put on some pretty good sized tournaments in the state of Iowa myself. So yeah, there's always those crazy things. Very little sleep for,
Hmm.
however long that tournament's going on. And
Yeah.
actually a couple days before that tournament starts, there's very little sleep.
Hmm.
You mentioned and maybe you haven't even talked about this yet, but we've been talking about this amongst ourselves. Um, you said track wrestling went down.
Hmm.
Have you ever have has the thought of USA bracketing come up? I know a few states have switched to it.
Hmm.
I don't know if you've seen it at all. I don't know if you've done anything with that. We're
Yeah.
started looking at it a little bit.
Hmm.
I've watched a few tournaments on it.
Yeah.
So, any
I've
thoughts on that?
heard I've heard mixed reviews. And I think that's something that it's kind of the wild, wild west a little bit. Where yes, track wrestling maybe isn't always great, but it does what we need it to do, and it does
Yeah,
everything that we need it to do. And I think it's going to be hard to find a space that does everything from the coach's side, the athlete side, our side, the tournament side. So I really haven't had too much of a personal experience for USA bracketing, but I don't think that's I think it would be a little bit down the road too, especially with our support and of Matt Shannon and his support of what he uses. And that's also something that we'd have to line with the Boys Association and Andy up there and their
yeah.
thoughts, just with so much crossover in girls and boys wrestling here in our state. So it would be before we had that, we would definitely have conversations with other states and how they're feeling about it. So
Yeah, I think I've seen it just a couple. I think Alaska
mhm.
and maybe Wisconsin have
Okay,
decided to try it.
interesting.
Yeah, and I don't think, those the parents at home or the kids looking at track profiles and everything switched to flow this last couple of weeks and
Hmm.
people are freaking out.
Hmm.
I don't think they realize the part of the track wrestling that the high school coaches use,
Right.
the weight the ascension plans are all put in
Hmm.
there. And it's the program's different on our side,
Yeah,
so yeah,
totally.
it is. It just came to me when you were talking about track
Hmm.
wrestling going down and the problems people have had switching over to the flow
Right.
arena, which that's garbage. So never go to
Hmm. Yeah.
that. So, um, so all those different things help prepare you for this role,
Hmm.
and stuff. So that's been really cool. I know that you're working heavily with regionals.
Hmm.
That's a huge thing. What went into making the selections for the regional sites? What is the requirements for the schools to
Hmm.
have for regionals?
Um, Aaron was a huge help in this process because I was definitely overwhelmed and a little bit terrified going into it. I'm like, oh my God, how does this process work? But it's a very fascinating process, actually. So, on top of pinning the boards with all of the schools in each class, again, that changed a little bit this year with the 80 and 2A. We have a site availability form on Bound that is sent out to all athletic directors. And we have that for different sports too. I know tennis just had it, so I kind of learned from seeing that experience. But it's a minimum to have 4 wrestling mats. And the space for it too, I think is huge. I know we all know the importance of warm up space for the girls, team camp space for the girls. But sometimes wrestling people don't always think about that. And that's something that we really looked at too in debating a few locations versus other locations or other schools. Um, but on top of that too, it depends on where your schools are at that year. So with the change in 2A, someone had mentioned, oh, there's no regional host sites south of 80. Well, if you look at our map, which I have back here, there's
Yep.
not many schools south of 80 in 2A. So that's
No.
something that, yeah, your schools are going to travel, but considering that too. And that's something that going further into regionals, it's a very interesting process and something that I've already started on actually because I understand that the level of everything that it's going to take. It's again very similar to watching it in tennis. You have girls that can move weight classes, and you may have a team that's really heavy on your smaller weights and really good on your smaller weights. And people don't always look at across the board. So I'll be tracking this year ranked girls across weight classes and then kind of adding them into teams a little bit. Um, but I've got like 4 or 5 different Excel sheets that I'm going to be following every single week and making sure that I'm right on the ball. But it's almost an impossible task a little bit is kind of what I've learned to make it perfect. Just because it's a little bit up to the girls too on if anybody moves weight classes. And just being able, it's going to be hard because you want to provide every girl every opportunity to make it to the state tournament. And that's something that we keep in the back of our mind every time that we do these. And yeah, another thing kind of going back to the regional sites and locations that Aaron had mentioned when we were going through this process is do they host a tournament, and do they have the team to do it? And that's why we put that information out so early is because wrestling's so unique in the sense that you need so many people to help run that tournament. You need how many table workers? You need someone that knows how to run track wrestling. It's longer sessions than, maybe a regional basketball game that's a couple hours long. It could be 4 to 5 hours long that night. So being able to put that information out early and being able to depend on the people. Do they have contacts with a track wrestling person? Do they run a tournament that I can go look at, and make sure that we're all on the same page. So there's a lot of different things that go into it that I'm definitely learning about. But if someone were interested in hosting regionals, that's something that we look at long term. But at the end of the day, if it's not filled out on our bound site availability form, then it's something that we're not going to look at.
Yeah. It's very impossible task to try to put those teams together, uh,
Mm-hmm.
put them across the state, making sure that, we get the best people there. And then on top of it, since we changed the idea of weight classes are
Mm-hmm.
now, you can change the day of basically,
Yeah.
pretty tough to figure out exactly
Mm-hmm.
where and how. And yeah, it's nuts. I've already figured out where I'm going, so I'll
Yeah.
find out if I'm correct or not.
Yeah.
I was not correct last year.
That's kind of fun. Some people that we're close with, they'll guess beforehand, and then when it comes out, they're like, I had it right or I didn't have it right, or what was your thought and why was I off on this? It's kind of
Yeah.
fun.
Yeah,
Like a big puzzle piece.
yeah, last year I had planned on being in Ames, and then the Sioux City teams jumped me and went to Ames. So I was close. I knew that was a possibility, but no,
Mm-hmm.
I really have enjoyed them coming back. Like I was a boys coach for a long time. I like
Mm-hmm.
it coming back to the high school gyms.
Yeah.
I really do like that environment.
Yeah.
It's different. Not that having the huge sites weren't great, and that was
Mhm.
really fun, but I know the cost the cost could not keep
Yeah.
up with that because a lot of the people don't know the cost it is to rent some of those facilities for a
Yeah.
day.
Yeah.
Yeah, I we
It's
we
pretty
rent
big.
facilities a couple times a year for AAU, and it's amazing how much those venues cost and how much
Hmm.
you have to overcome. So,
Yeah.
um, I mean, look, it's something here. I've actually just lost my train of thought completely, which is awesome. Oh yeah, so coming up soon, state duels.
Hmm.
Next year. I'm sure the planning's already happening for that.
Yeah.
What's going in? What all goes into planning for state duels? And I don't know. Are you getting places that say, "Hey, we want to host this"? What's all
Hmm.
going on?
We've had a little bit of both of venues reaching out to us saying, "Hey, we want to host this," and then we created our RFP, so our request for proposal, which we do for most of our state tournaments, and send that out to all locations across the state, all venues across the state, and give them an opportunity to send us a bid back, and then we'll kind of go through that. I think they're actually due here soon at the end of the month, and then that's something we hope to have out after the first of the year, while we're in wrestling season, so it's on everyone's mind. But it's a brand new tournament, so you have a whole nother tournament essentially, and we have that in some other sports like tennis. We have it was interesting to watch this year because you have your individual tournament, but then you have your dual team tournament, and you have regionals for that, and you have, it's a lot more. It's just another set of everything. So it's been interesting thinking future wise how I'm going to plan out for that and do things along the same lines as the individual tournament. Um, But something that we put in that was a minimum of, 6 wrestling mats with the thought of, are we going to grow? Are we going to be at 3 classes? And then, me working state duels over there for the boys at Extreme Arena, I went a lot based off of that setup and being able to, have the warm up space. You have a lot of kids that come over for dual team tournament, and making sure that we have the space for that is very important. Um, but I'm excited. I'm excited to see what people send back. I know there's quite a few people across the state that are interested in it, and I think it's something that can be similar but different from the individual tournament to make it unique experience and opportunity for the girls.
Yeah. And I know the girls union always puts on a show. So
Mm-hmm.
I'm excited to see that. I'm excited to see the improvements they make from the boys side because there will be some.
Mm-hmm.
It'll be definitely a different tournament than that. And I'm sure there'll be more thought going into how those teams get selected. And
Yeah.
because sometimes it seems, this is my own opinion, seems a little willy-nilly on the boys side. Well, we're taking the top ranked teams from the coaches association, what they're thinking. I know it's very difficult to do, but I'm sure there'll be some really good ideas come through the girls union for that. um,
Yeah.
when we're looking at classes, that was something that I know we talked about a lot in meetings the last few years. um,
Mm-hmm.
I think my opinion, and I'm not in on everything, but the idea of going to a 3 classes, I think, is the goal. I
Mm-hmm.
think you had said earlier to me, not on this, that a lot of classes or a lot of sports are kind of in that same thing. What do you
Mm-hmm.
think it's going to look like? What do we need to get to as far as how do we know it's time for 3 classes? I guess is the
Mm-hmm.
easy question.
Yeah, I think kind of like I was telling you earlier off camera, we were talking about how it's something across different sports that we're trying to come up. What is that number? Is that the growth number? Is it participation number? I mean, some of our sports you're seeing that number go down and not necessarily always go up like we are in wrestling. So kind of figuring that out as an organization as what does that growth look like? What is that number? Is it a number? Um, I know we have a growth slide in our IWCOA convention PowerPoint, and but is it something as simple as that, or is it the fullness of teams? Is it the competition level? Um, so there's a lot of different things that I think we're looking at, and is it something that we're looking at? We Aaron had made a great point when we talked about 24 qualifiers. If you add 24 qualifiers now, well, that's something we'd have to take away then adding another class. So is that something you want to give student athletes and then you want to take it away? Not necessarily, so there's a little bit of discussion on classes, qualifiers. I think this year will be telling for us too, because there's not a ton of changes. I know there's always changes in the sport of wrestling, especially here in our state. But last year, we had the big change to 2 classes, and then this year we added teams to 2A. But other than that, there's not any too many crazy changes, just little ones. So I think this will be a good year and a telling year as far as what our growth looks like in future discussions that need to be had. So it's
Yeah.
definitely something that's on our mind all the time.
Yeah, because I know initially, I mean, huge numbers from not sanctioning to sanctioning to the next year. Well, somewhere around the 3,500 wrestlers
Hmm.
last year. I know that's not exactly right, but somewhere around 3,500 wrestlers. But boy, some teams really aren't full. And
Right.
then, I'm even in that same boat where I'm a co-op. I know we have huge freshman classes coming in next year. Is that the year
Mhm.
that our co-op starts to split up? Because,
Right.
you know, when people talk about co-ops, and I know you've probably heard many discussions on this, and I actually just had a Dustin Rowland from Ankeny
Mm-hmm.
is my interview this week. It's
Nice.
actually uploaded today, and we
Hmm.
talked about it. And it's not necessarily the coach's decision. So
Right.
all those people stay off the coaches. It's a
Hmm.
lot of administrative things, but those decisions happen when you have a large class, and now my child is not
Hmm.
getting the opportunity. Why is that? Why are we taking these to these schools? So I look for in the next 3 to 4 years those things to happen. So
Yeah.
1A, 2A right now would look completely different with the split up
Hmm.
of a lot of the bigger major schools.
Yeah.
So and that would then drive the numbers down to the
Hmm.
smaller schools. But
Yeah.
man, yeah, I've looked at it before too. And if you went 3 classes this year, class which would be the smallest 1A would might be kind of sad,
Hmm.
with
It would be
numbers and how full the teams
Yeah,
are.
it's with something too that's a little bit different this year is House File 189, which changes our classifications for co-ops. So normally I would take the host school and then I would add everybody else's beds numbers to that. Well, this year I have to take the biggest school, not the host, and then
Yep.
do 0.25 of the other schools. So when you look at our classifications, I mean, even like I was looking at earlier this morning, Anamosa and Monticello, they used to be a lot higher than they are now because you only take 0.25 of that secondary school.
Yep.
So that's something that's changed a little bit, and we've had quite a few calls on, and something that we've been trying to push out and discuss with the ADs and coaches, because that is a change, and that does change things probably in the sport of wrestling more than any of our other sports. So,
Yeah, that was a change for my co-op because
hmm.
we're actually out of the 4 to 5, I guess, schools, we are the second smallest.
Hmm.
And the host school is the second smallest school. So
Right,
yeah, the largest school I get 1 to 2 athletes a year from, and
right.
but that's their issue, not my issue, you know.
Hmm.
So yeah, that's interesting how that's changing and how that will change.
Hmm.
Um, have you had your phone already blowing up with coaches' questions and things like that?
A few, but not, what, I'm kind of used to it with running tournaments, and it's not as like, I felt like some people were trying to scare me a little bit, but I wasn't. I know the wrestling community, and I'm a part of it, so it's something that I'm kind of used to, and I know that at the end of the day, we all just kind of want someone that cares about wrestling and cares about the sport and can provide answers and opportunities to coaches. And help serve them. So a little bit, yes, but also I'm ready for it.
So far, what tournaments have you all covered with the girls' union this year since you've taken your new role, not prior, but what have you been working on and what's been some really cool moments with some of those?
You mean like outside of wrestling?
No, yeah, yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Well, state softball was the first tournament. I actually played softball. I played softball at Johnston, and we won 2 state titles when I was there. So that was a really neat experience for me to kind of come back and start with that. It was a little bit full circle.
What
Um,
position did you play?
I played shortstop, second base, and first base. So
Oh
kind of all
wow,
over the board.
you were good. I see. I played bench is what I played in
Nice.
baseball,
You know
but
what? There's a move for everyone.
my sunflower spitting seed, through the
Uh-huh.
fence without touching, the skill level was incredibly high.
Yeah.
So, I had that.
That's the best game in softball and baseball. Yeah, that was a good tournament. That was fun. But I think, just being exposed to I thought I knew, a lot of what the girls' union did, but there's such a deeper level of everything and deeper conversations that you don't always necessarily see, which has been really fun for me to kind of seen from the other side of things and then kind of see it now on this side. And I'm excited to make it back to Iowa City for state volleyball. That was my first bid as a full-time employee for the sports commission. So that's something that's also going to be a little bit full circle for me. And then state swimming is in Iowa City this year, and that was one of the bids that I put in before I left. So there's a lot of fun connections that I have with a lot of the tournaments, but also some of the newer ones that I haven't been to before. I know state bowling is one of those that I haven't been to before, so I'm excited to see what that looks like.
Yeah. And then you said cross country's coming up,
Hmm.
and yeah, so there's just a lot happening.
Yeah,
Um, do you have pink shoes yet?
I do. I don't have them on today, but that's like a rite of passage to get some pink
What
shoes.
what did you go with?
I went with the nobles that the rest of the crew has, but I do have my going away gift from the sports commission was some pink Nike Dunks that Kylie Welker actually picked out with Josh in Mexico after Pan Am's. Maybe they saw them,
Nice.
and of course I have tiny feet, so they're in their size boys. But I'm excited to pull those out for the state tournaments and the nice outfit events.
Yeah, I had to tell Aaron I felt really like I had the Nike Dunks that I customized last year too, that I
Mhm.
really felt like maybe I had the best shoe game in the state of
Yeah,
Iowa,
yeah.
so we'll see if you can get there.
See if I can beat it.
Yeah. I might not do anything new this year. I don't know. It's
Oh,
getting
come
late in
on,
the
you have
year.
to. That's the best part.
I'll see if I can figure something out.
There you go.
I might rotate them because I bought a new pair of shoes every year that I've been a head coach, and except so I'll give you the advice: never customize, especially if you're running the tournament and having to be up
Hmm.
on your feet. Don't do Converse All Stars.
Ooh,
They'll
those
kill. They
hurt.
will kill your feet. I had Converse All
Yeah.
Stars the first 2 years, and I might as well just stayed home the next few days
Yeah. Yeah. Your feet
because
were swollen. Yeah.
that is not the way to go.
Yeah.
Definitely not the way to go. No crack on Converse. They have their place, just
Hmm.
not when you're hitting 30, 40,000 steps in a day running a
Yeah.
wrestling tournament.
Yeah.
Um, I think I've kind of gotten close to the end here. I got three questions left for you.
Okay.
Um, how do you think we can improve the Iowa Girls State Wrestling Tournament?
Ooh. Um, I think it's something that we look at every single year, kind of across the board for all of our state tournaments too, is how can we provide more opportunity for the girls? And I think reevaluating every year is important. And I think that's something, like with the change in the state tournament schedule, that's changing. Last year in theory, we thought it was going to be great to have 6 mats going, but we didn't really highlight those final 2 mats, and those championship mats. So I think this year being able to highlight just those mats, will really give those girls the feeling of what it's like to be, this on in the spotlight. And I think that's something that we are open-minded about and need to be open-minded about, is that the sport is always going to be changing and ideas are always going to be changing. Um, and just continuing to address those things that make the tournament better. I know, from our conversation today, there's a ton of things I could write down and consider for our future tournaments. But I'm excited for the change this year in the schedule. I think it'll open it up a little bit, and provide, more people to come in, more eyes to be on the tournament, more exposure. I know social media is one of my roles, and being able to share all of our sports to the same light. Of course, you have different tiers and different levels. No sport is going to be as big as volleyball and basketball.
Yeah.
But being able to provide some of our smaller sports, like tennis and wrestling is in a different tier, give them the spotlight that they deserve on all of our platforms, is a goal of mine. And I think that kind of plays into our state tournaments as well. So,
Yeah. Yeah, I will tell you, I love having the 6 mats going on at finals. I think that's a unique thing, but I
mhm,
do understand. I've heard the other argument on that
mhm.
highlighting those top
Yeah.
people. So
It'll
I get
be
that.
it'll be interesting this year to see what the air is like. I've done a few soldier salute. We had a dog bone types or a wishbone set up.
Yep.
And then no dog bone.
Yep.
And then we had like Donnybrook, we have 3 mats out there. And sometimes you can have some dead air because there's not as much going on. And so that kind of adds to the energy a little bit. And there's a lot of energy in wrestling that you can kind of feed off of, from an outsider, looking in on the tournament. So I'm hoping that we can kind of get creative with some things to make sure that energy is still there and the opportunity to be in the spotlight is still there for the girls, not just because I one thing that I really want to do, and don't quote me if this doesn't happen, but I want to put seating on the floor, and you look at an Iowa dual meet or an Iowa State dual meet and your team is there, and I want to kind of
Yep.
create that atmosphere. Something we did for NCWWC this last year is have in the front row family members down there being able to watch right there. Again, I don't think that's something we can do with family members, but that's maybe
Yep.
something we can do with the team and provide student athlete and coach seating on the floor, for some of those teams. I think that would be fun, and a way to create that atmosphere with just 2 mats. So,
Yeah, that would be very cool. That's I actually looking at these things, I actually tomorrow I'm doing an interview. It'll be a few weeks before with Wade Chalice, and I don't know if you know any. Wade Chalice is the NCAA pin leader for since like 1970 something, but
nice.
he's kind of a fun guy, but he has a lot of ideas on how to make wrestling more mainstream because
Uh-huh.
he's got a lot of things. But the dual meet and the atmosphere of a dual meet, how can we recreate that in a
Hmm.
individual tournament also?
Yeah.
Because that's where the fun is in there, but individual tournaments so important for the
Hmm.
being a state champions. That's what wrestling's about, you
Yeah.
know. So yeah. Um, New question I'm trying out. You'll be the
Hmm.
second one to get this question. Uh, Not the organization, but what do you feel like it means to wrestle like a girl in the state of Iowa?
Ooh. Um, I think first and foremost, I think it means opportunity. I mean, I don't know if I would have wrestled, but it's an opportunity that the girls here in the state of Iowa have that not everyone has. And I think, you don't look, I was a part of the Iowa Women's Wrestling Club and starting that up, and you talk to some of those girls that had a very different experience, and it's only been 5 years ago,
Mhm.
and so it's an opportunity that I don't think any of us should take for granted that we have it, whether that's being, an administrator, whether that's being a coach, an athlete, a trainer, a parent, a grandparent, that gets to watch that opportunity to wrestle like a girl, and I think, oh my God, you could go on with different words that what it means. And I think that opportunity helps provide those words, that helps teach strength and grit, and it teaches life experiences that, I mean, across the board for all of our sports. And I'm a huge believer in sports create who you are. And I think those tough times in wrestling and the grittiness of wrestling teaches you more than anything. And I didn't wrestle, and that's
Yeah.
just me being someone that has cared about the sport for the last 4 or 5 years. So,
Yeah. I liked what you said there because those girls that came ahead, wow, they went through a
mhm,
lot. They went
mhm,
through a whole lot of things. And you said Hawkeye Wrestling Club. I was on a trip with Rachel Waters this year, and I just
right.
think where her career might have been had she not, you know, she'd
Yeah.
probably been a four-time state champion. She'd have,
Yeah.
had all these things, and yeah, really, really cool.
It
That was a good
was,
answer.
yeah,
That was
it's
good.
cool. I met Trisha Saunders this last year.
Yep.
We had viewing for I think it's changed the name of what the whole Flow documentary was that they did. And we had a viewing, oh God, it might have been a year ago now. But meeting her and listening to her stories, it's
Yep.
crazy. And I'm like, I, I don't even think, just because it's my generation too, a little bit, I don't even think people understand, And I'm like, I want people to be able, and girls to be able to understand what had to be done before, to get to this opportunity that they have, and to not take it for granted and appreciate, every chance they get on the mat, and us creating that opportunity for them to be on the mat. So,
Yeah. Every time I hear a parent say, "Well, I want my daughter to wrestle boys," it makes me hurt.
yeah.
You know, as many girls that fought to get that opportunity just to wrestle girls and
Hmm.
not have to wrestle boys.
Yeah.
The injuries that I've watched, the careers that I've seen ended because
Right.
of injuries that probably would not have happened. You know, injuries
Hmm.
happen all the time. I know that, but those are some things that,
Yeah.
it's yeah, I'm really thankful for the girls' union and having
Hmm.
them sanction the sport. Last thing, final thoughts. Anything you'd like to let everybody know for the upcoming season?
Mm.
Floor
Um,
is yours.
I'm maybe more on a personal level, it's my goal to kind of get out there and really meet the coaches and be a face for the girls union. Kind of like I said earlier, I look up to Erin in a lot of ways, how she's viewed in the wrestling community in the state of Iowa. And I think I'm a little bit there, and sometimes I forget that, I have been carrying in the sport for the last 4 or 5 years. But it's something that's a goal of mine, to get out there and hear the coaches, listen to the coaches, meet the coaches, the student athletes. So I know on my schedule this year, I kind of created my own wrestling schedule where I'm trying to go to as many dual meets and tournaments throughout the year as possible. So if you see me, come introduce yourself. That's something that I'll try and introduce myself to. I really want to be out there and wearing the pink shoes and making sure that um, wrestling is getting what it needs. So
Very nice. Yeah, if you're in Fort Dodge that first week before Thanksgiving, I
I
hope.
am. That's on my
Are you?
schedule.
Awesome.
Yep. That
Perfect.
one's on my,
That'll be
that's
great.
a Tuesday, right?
Yep, that's a Tuesday. That's a fantastic tournament. They've done a really good job
Yeah.
in running that. I think he might have moved to a different building this year to put more mats down. I'm not 100% sure on
How
that.
many
So
mats is it?
it was four before,
Okay.
but it was in just their main gym. But he had talked about moving to a field house and putting out more
Okay.
mats and inviting more teams. So
Nice.
It's been a good tournament so far, so hopefully it keeps getting bigger and growing. So,
Yeah.
well, thank you very much for doing this today. I know you have some more meetings this afternoon, but
I actually
uh,
have a NFHS wrestling meeting this afternoon, so
oh,
it'll be
all
more
right,
wrestling, which is great. I
all right.
appreciate you having me on today and letting me kind of get out there and speak. So,
Well, thank you. We'll talk. We'll talk to you soon.
yes, thanks.